Did you know that a hotel janitor in the United States uncovered secrets so powerful they shook an entire industry and brought billionaires to their knees? Have you ever wondered how a single phone call can change an entire life? How far a mother will go to protect her child? Why corporations worth billions fear the voice of one ordinary woman? And what happens when the truth refuses to stay buried? This isn't just a story. This is a true story. The journey of a woman who was once invisible, yet her courage and determination forced the whole world to see her. If you want to discover how an ordinary woman made the impossible possible, exposed a powerful corporate empire, and fought for her son's future, then you need to hear this story, because the truth, no matter how hidden, always finds its light. Houston, Texas, the city that never truly slept, its freeways humming like arteries of restless energy. Within its sprawling concrete veins stood the glass towers of Stellar Biotech Corporation, a company whispered about in boardrooms and political circles alike. Billion-dollar patents, life-saving drugs, controversial trials, and in the margins of its polished lobbies and high-security labs, the silent figures who scrubbed, polished, and disinfected long after the executives had gone home. Among those shadows moved Maria Estela Ramirez. At 34, Maria's life was a careful balance of exhaustion and quiet defiance. Each evening she tied her thick black hair into a bun, zipped herself into a gray janitor's uniform, and slipped into the endless corridors of Stellar Biotech. Her ID badge granted access only to maintenance areas, never the executive floors where glass walls overlooked downtown Houston. That was where the powerful decided which drugs lived, which died, and which lies would be dressed as progress. For Maria, it was never just a cleaning job. It was survival, rent for her tiny apartment in the East End, groceries, and most painfully, insulin for her 10-year-old son, Mateo. The boy's bright eyes masked the heaviness of daily injections. But every visit to the pharmacy reminded Maria of the cruel arithmetic. 60% of her paycheck dissolved into vials and syringes. She whispered prayers each night that his condition would never spiral out of control before her next payday. But Maria carried a secret, one that no supervisor at Stellar Biotech suspected. By day she was invisible, a janitor with tired shoes and rubber gloves. By night, after tucking Mateo into bed, she transformed into a different kind of fighter. Her battered laptop hummed under the glow of a thrift store lamp. She wrote lines of code, broke down cybersecurity puzzles, and practiced ethical hacking drills from online forums. Maria wasn't a hobbyist. She was obsessive. She devoured programming manuals, joined underground chat rooms where veterans of the digital wars tested each other's skills. Slowly, stubbornly, she carved herself into someone who could break firewalls and rebuild them stronger. Her dream wasn't fame. It wasn't even wealth. It was protection. She wanted to safeguard people like her son, who lived at the mercy of corporations that treated life-saving medicine as bargaining chips. She dreamed of becoming a cyber defense expert, but the rejections piled high. 42 applications. Not a single callback. To HR departments, she wasn't a budding security analyst. She was just a janitor with a Hispanic last name and a resume that reeked of not our cultural fit. And yet fate, like a faulty lock, was about to be forced open. The forgotten tablet, it began on a Thursday night. Maria had been assigned to disinfect the 11th floor, lab offices where white coats left behind coffee rings and hurried scribbles on glass boards. As she pushed her cleaning cart into an unused conference room, her eyes landed on something left on the table. A sleek black tablet, screen cracked, charger dangling. Employees often forgot their devices, but this one hummed faintly, as if waiting. She should have turned it into security. That was the rule. But when Maria lifted it, she noticed something odd. The login screen was already bypassed, frozen on a half-written email draft. Curiosity pried at her conscience. Just a glance, she told herself. Then I'll lock it away. Her eyes darted to the door. Empty hallway. She tapped the screen. The message wasn't ordinary. It was an encrypted file attachment, its title a string of numbers and letters. Maria recognized the format instantly. She had practiced breaking such encryptions in her midnight coding marathons. Her pulse quickened. Why would a simple lab assistant or even a senior researcher be writing an email in this format? She slid the tablet into the bottom of her cart, beneath stacks of folded rags. Every instinct screamed this was reckless. Every part of her life, the paycheck, the insulin, the fragile balance, depended on staying invisible. Yet something stronger urged her forward. Matteo's question. When she reached home past midnight, Matteo was asleep on the couch, cartoons frozen on the screen. Maria covered him with a blanket, kissed his forehead, and retreated to her small desk. The tablet gleamed under the lamplight, daring her. She connected it to her laptop, bypassed the damaged interface, and began working through the encrypted file. Hours melted. The digital lock was sophisticated but flawed, like a mansion with a cracked window. At dawn, the file opened. Her breath caught. Trial results, Phase 3 drug. Name SLR97, status manipulated. The document contained tables, graphs, and annotations, evidence that the company's latest diabetes drug had failed clinical safety standards, severe side effects, organ complications. Yet someone had edited the results, relabeled data points, and drafted a press release declaring the trial a resounding success. Maria's stomach turned cold. SLR97 wasn't just any drug. It was designed for diabetic children. Children like Matteo. Invisible struggles. That morning, Maria walked Matteo to school, clutching his lunch bag tighter than usual. He looked up with sleepy eyes. "Mama, why do you always look sad after work?" he asked. She forced a smile. "I'm just tired, Michelo. But everything I do for you." She watched him disappear into the building, her chest heavy with the truth she couldn't share. If this document was real, Stellar Biotech was preparing to unleash a dangerous drug onto desperate families. And if anyone inside the company discovered she had it, she would lose everything. By noon, exhaustion pressed against her eyelids. But fear had hardened into determination. Someone had to know. Someone trustworthy. That was when she thought of Elijah Carter. The old guard Elijah was a 60-year-old night security guard at the hospital across the street from Stellar Biotech. He carried himself with a quiet dignity, a limp in his left leg from years in the army. Most janitors passed him without a word, but Maria had shared coffee with him during overlapping shifts. She knew fragments of his past. Once a cyber defense officer, now retired after bureaucratic politics pushed him out. That evening, Maria found him in his booth, sipping black coffee. "Elijah," she whispered, glancing around, "I need advice." He studied her face, eyes narrowing with the intuition of a man who had seen too many secrets. "What kind of advice?" Maria slid the tablet forward, screen flickering. His brows furrowed as he skimmed the file. Silence stretched. Then he exhaled sharply. "Damn, you don't know what you've stumbled into, girl." "Tell me I'm wrong," Maria pleaded. "Tell me this is fake." He shook his head slowly. "No, this is corporate fraud, high level. If this drug hits the market the way they've dressed it up, kids will die. And you," he jabbed a finger toward her, "you're sitting on dynamite." Her throat tightened. "What do I do?" Elijah leaned back, rubbing his temple. "First rule of surviving corruption. Never trust the system that's rigged against you. If you go to HR, they'll bury you. If you go to the media without proof, they'll smear you. You need strategy. You need allies. And most of all, you need to stay alive." Maria's pulse pounded. Alive, the word wasn't metaphorical. She could feel the danger creeping closer, even as the neon skyline of Houston flickered outside the booth. Elijah fixed her with a steady gaze. "You've got skills, I can tell. Use them, collect more evidence. But never from your work account. Never from your shift. Stay invisible until you're ready." For the first time in years, Maria felt seen. Not as a janitor, not as a struggling mother, but as someone with power, however dangerous. That night, as she walked back towards Stellar Biotech for her shift, Maria whispered to herself, "No más invisibilidad. No more being invisible." She didn't yet know that this decision would ignite a chain of events that would shake the very foundations of Stellar Biotech and force her to gamble everything she loved. The 11th floor smelled of antiseptic and ambition. Maria pushed her cart slowly, mop swaying in rhythm, but her eyes weren't on the floors anymore. Every doorway felt like a secret waiting to be overheard. Every careless conversation could be a puzzle piece. Since showing Elijah the tablet, her sense of reality had shifted. The company she scrubbed and polished for was no longer just an employer. It was a machine, gleaming on the surface, rotting inside. And she, the invisible janitor, now carried a fragment of its darkest secret. A warning in the break room Friday evening. Maria stopped by the break room for a glass of water. A cluster of lab technicians huddled near the vending machine, whispering in clipped tones. She paused by the sink, pretending to rinse her hands. "The numbers don't add up," one muttered. "Shh," another hissed, glancing at her. Their eyes dismissed her instantly, just the cleaning lady. They lowered their voices, but Maria's ears caught stray words. Pressure, trial, deadline Monday. Her stomach tightened. Monday. That meant whatever they were hiding was close to surfacing. She left before suspicion could spark, heart hammering. Mateo's drawing that weekend. Maria tried to focus on Mateo. They visited the park, bought tamales from a street vendor, and watched a Marvel movie on their tiny couch. But Sunday night, as she folded laundry, Mateo handed her a crayon drawing. "It's us, Mama," he explained proudly. The paper showed a tall building with glass windows. At the bottom, a stick figure with a mop. Above, a smaller figure with a cape. "That's me?" Maria asked softly. "You're a superhero," Mateo declared. "You clean the bad stuff so people don't get sick." "That's like saving lives." Her throat ached. If only he knew how close his words were to the truth. She hugged him tight, praying she would live up to his picture. Elijah's training Monday night. Maria returned to Elijah's booth, the tablet hidden in her backpack. He had cleared his desk, a notepad open, pen ready. "You want to play this game, you need to learn rules," he said. "Rule 1, never store evidence in one place. You make duplicates. Cloud, USB, paper if you must. Rule 2, encryption is your shield. If they find your files, make sure they can't read them. Rule 3. He leaned closer, his voice low. Trust no one with a title above manager. Promotions don't buy loyalty. They buy silence. Maria nodded, committing each word to memory. Elijah scribbled codes and shortcuts, teaching her tricks he'd once used in the military. She soaked it up like parched earth drinking rain. For the first time, her midnight study sessions weren't theory. They were survival. "Why are you helping me?" she asked finally. Elijah's eyes darkened. "Because 20 years ago I didn't help someone. And I've regretted it every day since." He didn't explain further, and Maria didn't press. The manager's shadow back at Stellar. Maria felt the eyes of her supervisor. Charles Denton lingering longer than usual. Denton was a broad man with a buzz cut and a permanent sneer, the kind who enjoyed power in petty doses. He loved to remind Maria of her place. "Ramirez," he barked that Tuesday as she wheeled her cart past the elevators. "You missed a streak on the third-floor mirrors yesterday." "Sloppy work." Maria swallowed her irritation. "I'll redo them tonight, sir," he smirked. "See that you do. You're not irreplaceable." The irony burned in her chest. If only he knew the kind of files hidden in her backpack. But invisibility meant swallowing pride for now. The wrong elevator Wednesday night exhaustion made Maria careless. She had been cleaning the 12th floor when she realized her mop bucket was empty. She pressed the elevator button, intending to head down. But when the doors opened, 2 men in suits stepped out mid-conversation, their words slicing through her fog. "The FDA review is a formality," one said. "Coleman already signed the lobbying checks." Maria froze, head down, pretending to adjust her gloves. The second man replied, "What about the anomalies? They'll never see them." Whitfield's team took care of it. The doors slid shut, trapping Maria in silence. She realized she hadn't even pressed a button. Her reflection stared back at her from polished steel. Tired eyes, uniform, badge number. To them, she was invisible, but her mind raced. Anomalies, FDA, lobbying. The web stretched wider than she'd imagined. Sleepless night back home, Maria lay awake beside Mateo's small bed. She watched his chest rise and fall, the hum of the insulin pump on the nightstand steady as a metronome. Her phone buzzed, a message from Elijah. "Don't dig too fast. They'll notice." "Think long game," she typed back. "But what if it's too late?" The dots blinked, then vanished. No reply. Maria stared at the ceiling, torn between fear and urgency. If Stellar Biotech pushed this drug through, children like Mateo would become experiments. Could she really wait? The choice Thursday evening, fate forced her hand. Denton summoned her to his office, a cramped space smelling of stale coffee. He gestured at a pile of papers. "You'll cover overtime this weekend," he said. "Convention on Monday. VIP floors spotless." Maria nodded, though fatigue already gnawed at her. As she turned to leave, she noticed a folder half hidden on his desk. The header read, "Conference Materials, SLR 97 Presentation." Her pulse spiked. Monday, the same deadline the technicians had whispered about. "Problem?" Denton asked, eyes narrowing. "No, sir," Maria murmured, slipping out she didn't need more proof. The puzzle pieces clicked. Stellar planned to unveil the falsified trial results at the upcoming conference. And once the announcement was made, the drug's approval would be almost unstoppable. That night, Maria sat at her desk, staring at the tablet. Mateo's drawing of her as a superhero was taped to the wall. Her hands trembled as she typed a new folder name, Invisibles. Inside, she began compiling every scrap of evidence she could find. Screenshots, encrypted notes, overheard conversations. For the first time, Maria wasn't just cleaning the halls of Stellar Biotech. She was infiltrating them, and deep down she knew. The moment she hit save, there was no turning back. Rain lashed the windows of Maria's apartment Friday night. The storm rattled the glass, a warning in nature's voice. She sat at her desk, laptop glowing, Mateo asleep in the next room. Every so often she glanced at the folded drawing taped above her screen, the stick figure in a cape, her son's innocent belief that she could be a hero. Her folder Invisibles had grown. Screenshots of the doctored clinical trial results, fragments of overheard conversations, metadata she'd quietly extracted from Stellar Biotech's internal servers, using tricks Elijah had taught her. Nothing explosive yet, but together it painted a picture of deceit. Still, Maria felt the weight of invisibility cracking. If she was seen, even once, everything could collapse. At 2 a.m., her inbox pinged. The address was unfamiliar. Stringed letters and numbers, no subject line. She hesitated before opening. "I know what you found. You don't understand how deep this goes. Stop while you can. People are watching." Maria's blood ran cold. The message had no signature, no attachments. Just a threat dressed as advice. She stared at the words, then at the curtains, suddenly certain there were eyes behind every shadow. She considered deleting the folder, wiping her drives clean, pretending ignorance. But when she tiptoed to Mateo's room and saw him curled against his pillow, she knew retreat was impossible. Saturday evening, Maria prepared for her overtime shift. She was zipping her backpack when a knock rattled the door. Rare, almost no one visited. Through the peephole she saw a woman, mid-30s, sharp suit, eyes like steel. Maria's gut screamed danger. "Ms. Ramirez?" the woman called. Her tone was calm, rehearsed. "I'm with Stellar Biotech's compliance department. May I have a word?" Maria's throat tightened. "Compliance? At her apartment?" She forced her voice steady. "It's late. Can you come back during the day?" The woman smiled faintly. "I think you'll want to hear what I have to say." Maria's hands trembled on the doorknob. Something about the visitor's polished demeanor felt less like an HR rep and more like enforcement. Quietly, Maria turned away, lifted Mateo from his bed and carried him into the bathroom. She locked the door, phone shaking in her hand as she texted Elijah, "Someone's here." "What do I do?" Minutes passed before the reply came. "Don't open. Don't speak. Wait her out." The knock persisted, polite but insistent. Finally, after 10 minutes, silence. Maria waited another 30 before daring to step back into the living room. The hallway outside was empty, but tucked under her door was a plain envelope. Inside, a blank sheet of paper. No words, no threats. Just emptiness. It chilled her more than anything the woman could have said. Elijah's revelation, Sunday night. Maria met Elijah in his booth again. The storm from the previous night replaced by a heavy Texas humidity. She recounted the visit, every detail sharp in her memory. He cursed under his breath. That wasn't compliance. That was a contractor. Private security. These corporations hire them to sniff out leaks before they become scandals. "Why me?" Maria whispered. "I'm nothing to them. That's exactly why you're dangerous. They underestimate you, but someone inside must have noticed something. An access log, a copied file. You're not as invisible as you think." Maria clutched her backpack tighter. "What do I do now?" Elijah leaned forward, eyes grave. You build a dead man's switch. If they silence you, the evidence releases automatically. It's the only way to keep them from touching you or Mateo. Her stomach clenched. The thought of preparing for her own disappearance was unbearable. But Elijah's tone left no room for argument. Sunday midnight. That night, Maria stayed up coding. She set up encrypted backups in multiple cloud accounts under false identities. She scheduled files to email themselves to local journalists if she didn't check in every 48 hours. Her hands moved with grim determination, but when she finally leaned back, exhaustion flooding her. She realized what this meant. She was officially at war with Stellar Biotech, and wars demanded sacrifices. The conference floor Monday morning. Stellar Biotech buzzed with unusual energy. Executives paraded in tailored suits, interns scurried with clipboards, and giant banners declared, SLR 97, a new dawn for diabetes care. Maria worked silently, polishing marble floors until they reflected the lights like a stage. The convention center's ballroom had been transformed into a temple of progress. Screens displayed smiling children. Slogans promised affordable innovation. She felt bile rise in her throat. Affordable? Each insulin vial already drained her paychecks. This new drug would be no different, except this time it wasn't just overpriced. It was poison. At the edge of the stage, she spotted Denton overseeing staff, barking orders. But she also noticed two unfamiliar men in black suits near the exit. Their eyes scanned the room not for dust or fingerprints, but for threats. The whispered warning as Maria wheeled her cart toward the supply closet. A hand brushed her shoulder. She turned, startled, to find one of the catering staff, a young man with dark hair and nervous eyes. You don't know me, he muttered quickly. But I know what you have. Maria froze. Her lips parted, but he continued before she could speak. They'll try to bury it today. Once the announcement's made, the data disappears. If you want to stop them, tonight's your only chance. Then he was gone, blending back into the swarm of servers carrying trays of champagne. Maria's heart thundered. Another stranger who knew? Who could she trust? The curtain rises at noon, the ballroom filled. Journalists, investors, scientists. Cameras rolled as Stellar's CEO, Gregory Whitfield, took the stage. His smile was charismatic, his voice practiced. Ladies and gentlemen, he began. Today we mark a turning point in medical history. Maria stood in the back, mop in hand, invisible as always. But inside, her mind screamed. Every word he spoke about safety and hope for children was a dagger twisting deeper. Her phone buzzed. The new message from the unknown number. Last chance to walk away. Maria gripped the handle of her mop until her knuckles turned white. She wasn't walking away. Not now. Because in that moment, as Whitfield's voice echoed through the ballroom, Maria Ramirez realized something terrifying. She wasn't invisible anymore. The applause roared through the ballroom like thunder. Whitfield basked in it, his polished shoes glinting beneath the spotlights. Investors scribbled numbers, journalists raised cameras, and the giant screen behind him flashed images of smiling families. Maria gripped her cart tightly, forcing herself to breathe. Every instinct screamed to shout the truth, to rip the microphone from Whitfield's hand and expose the fraud. But Elijah's warning echoed in her ears. Play the long game. Stay invisible until you're ready, so she polished. She wiped non-existent smudges from a nearby table, head bowed, ears wide open. The quiet intrusion. After the presentation, executives dispersed into private sessions. Caterers cleared dishes. Maria waited until the crowd thinned before slipping down a restricted hallway. She had memorized employee patterns from weeks of cleaning. She knew when doors were least watched, when ID swipes weren't checked too closely. She pushed her cart into a side office and shut the door softly. The room was lined with filing cabinets and a single computer terminal. Heart hammering, she sat, pulled a USB from her pocket and inserted it. Lines of code blossomed across the screen. Her own makeshift program, stitched together in sleepless nights. She bypassed the login with a brute force loop Elijah had shown her, praying no alarms tripped. The system opened. Maria navigated to the Trials folder, hands trembling. Files cascaded down, reports, lab notes, expense sheets. She copied everything onto the USB. Each second felt like eternity. A sudden click behind her made her freeze. The door handle. Maria yanked the USB, shoved it into her pocket, and sprang to her feet just as the door opened. It was Denton's suspicion. "What the hell are you doing in here?" he demanded, eyes narrowing. Maria's mind raced. She gestured to the desk. "Cleaning, sir." "You said VIP floors spotless." Denton stepped closer, scanning the desk, the unplugged monitor still glowing faintly. His lips twisted. "Funny. I didn't think janitors needed to log into company terminals." Maria's stomach lurched. She forced a laugh. "Oh, I don't. The screen was already on when I came in. I was just about to wipe it down." For a tense moment, Denton studied her, suspicion burning in his eyes. Then he muttered, "Next time, stick to the floors," and brushed past her. Maria exhaled slowly, her legs trembling. Too close. Far too close. A dangerous gift that evening, back in her apartment. Maria plugged the USB into her laptop. Dozens of files spilled across the screen. She scanned reports, graphs, internal memos, proof upon proof of falsified results. But one document made her skin crawl. Subject: containment strategy. Should leaks occur, employ contracted security teams to neutralize risk. Employees identified as potential whistleblowers to be monitored. Immediate response authorized. Neutralize risk. The word sent a shiver through her. She wasn't just a janitor with a secret anymore. She was a risk, and Stellar Biotech's strategy for risks was simple: elimination. Mateo's fear later that night, as Maria tucked Mateo into bed, he frowned. "Mama," he whispered, "why were there men outside?" Her heart skipped. "What men?" "Earlier today, black suits. They stood by the building. One looked at me when I was playing by the window." Maria forced calm into her voice. "Probably just people from work, mi cielo." "Don't worry," but inside, terror clawed at her. They were already watching. Not just her, Mateo too. When he drifted to sleep, she sat beside him for hours, the glow of the nightlight flickering across her determined face. If Stellar wanted to scare her into silence, they'd chosen the wrong mother. Elijah's ultimatum. The next night, Maria met Elijah in the booth again, shoving the USB into his hands. He scrolled through the files, eyes widening. "Jesus, Maria, this isn't just corruption. This is premeditated harm. They know exactly what they're doing." "So we leak it," Maria pressed. "Send it to the press. Blow it wide open." Elijah shook his head. "Not yet. A dump like this without context will get buried. They'll spin it as misinterpreted data, maybe even frame you as a rogue employee. You need one shot, one undeniable moment. The right journalist. The right stage." Maria's fists clenched. "And if we wait too long, Mateo's generation becomes guinea pigs." Elijah met her eyes, pain flickering there. "Then you have to decide. Protect your son quietly, or risk him for the chance to protect everyone else." The words hung between them like a blade. A strange ally Wednesday. Maria returned to Stellar for her night shift, nerves taut as wires. As she pushed her cart past the loading dock, a whisper stopped her. "Psst," she turned. The catering worker from the conference stepped out of the shadows, clutching a duffel bag. "I told you Monday was your only chance," he hissed. "You didn't act. Now they're tightening the net. Who are you?" Maria demanded. He glanced around, voice low. "Name's Jordan. Used to work in the labs. When I questioned the trial results, they made sure I disappeared from the payroll. But I still have contacts, and I know you've got files." Maria's pulse spiked. "Why help me?" Jordan's eyes hardened. "Because my little sister was in that trial. She's in the hospital now. They called it an unrelated complication." It wasn't. Grief knotted Maria's chest. Mateo's face flashed before her. She believed him. She had to. Jordan pressed a slip of paper into her hand. "Encrypted journalist contact, independent. Doesn't bow to corporate money. If you're serious, this is your chance." Before she could reply, he vanished back into the night. The resolved Maria walked home under the buzzing streetlights, the slip of paper burning in her pocket. The city stretched around her, towers gleaming, traffic roaring. But she felt utterly alone, one janitor standing against a billion-dollar machine. She looked up at the sky, clouds swallowing the stars, and whispered a promise only the night could hear. "I won't stay invisible. Not anymore." She didn't know how or when or if she would survive it, but one truth anchored her. For Mateo, for Jordan's sister, for every family clawing for hope, she would fight. and the storm that had been gathering in shadows was about to break wide open. The signal 2 nights later, Maria stood at the bus stop with her cart beside her, the slip of paper still folded tight in her pocket. She had memorized the encrypted email string, copied it by hand 3 times, terrified of losing it. But pressing send meant crossing a line from which there was no return. She tapped her phone screen, thumb hovering over the address bar. What if it was a trap? Jordan could be bait. Denton could have staged it to catch her red-handed. The bus screeched to a halt, and a flood of night shift workers climbed aboard. Maria didn't move. She waited until the street emptied again, then slipped the phone back into her pocket. Not tonight. She wasn't ready. Not yet. But the decision wouldn't wait for her much longer. Eyes everywhere at Stellar. The security presence had doubled. Men in suits roamed the hallways at all hours, radios crackling. Cameras that Maria had ignored for months suddenly seemed to swivel with purpose when she passed. Her pulse quickened whenever Denton crossed her path. His narrowed eyes followed her like a hawk circling a field mouse. "You're walking slower these days, Alvarez," he said one night, his voice casual, his smile anything but. "Stress getting to you? Maybe I should assign someone to—" "Ease your load," Maria forced a smile. "Just keeping things spotless, sir. Company deserves it." The words tasted like ash in her mouth, but she couldn't afford to slip. Not yet. Mateo's drawing that weekend. Mateo sat at the kitchen table, crayons scattered around him. Maria scrubbed a pan, exhausted, until his little voice broke through. "Look, Mama, I drew our house." She dried her hands and leaned over. His drawing showed their building, blocky and crooked, with 2 stick figures by the window, him and her. But in the street below, he had drawn black shapes. Men, faceless, with square jaws and sharp edges. "Why do they look scary?" Maria asked softly. "Because they watch us," Mateo replied as if stating the weather. Tears stung her eyes. She pulled him close, holding him longer than he understood. The meeting on Monday, Elijah called her back to the booth. His face was tight, restless. "They're closing in," he whispered. "I saw a car tailing you last night. Black SUV, tinted windows. Same model that parked outside my complex last month. We don't have much time." Maria slid the slip of paper across the table. "Jordan gave me this. A journalist." Elijah scanned it, eyebrows lifting. "If this is legit, it's gold." "She's fearless." They tried to silence her twice. She only got louder. Maria leaned in. "Then we move. I'll meet her." Elijah hesitated. "Maria, once you step into her world, there's no walking back to invisibility. They'll come after you harder than ever. You could lose Mateo." Her fist slammed the table. "I won't lose him. That's why I'm doing this." The silence that followed was final. Elijah knew. Maria had chosen. First contact 2 nights later, Maria slipped into a crowded subway station and followed the instructions Jordan had scribbled on the note. Platform 4, last bench. Midnight. The woman waiting there wore a leather jacket and carried no bag. She looked up, eyes sharp, and whispered, "You're late." Maria's heart pounded. "Are you?" "Yes, don't say names. Don't say company. Just give me proof." Maria hesitated, then passed her a slim drive wrapped in a napkin. The woman tucked it away without looking. "They'll come for you soon," the woman said. "They always do. But once this goes live, you won't be alone anymore. You'll be loud." Very loud, Maria swallowed hard. For the first time, she felt the weight of her decision crush her chest and lift it all at once. "Then let them come," she whispered. The woman nodded, eyes narrowing in approval, and melted into the crowd as a train roared into the station. The leak 3 days later. Stellar Biotech's pristine image cracked. An investigative website published damning evidence. Falsified trials, manipulated data, payments to shadow contractors, screenshots of memos, transcripts, charts, and one line that caught fire across social media. Containment strategy, neutralize risk. News anchors shouted it. Senators demanded answers. Investors fled. Inside Stellar, panic spread like wildfire. Whitfield thundered through meetings. Denton barked orders. And everywhere Maria turned, fear crackled in the air like electricity before a storm. But she stayed silent, invisible, watching. The threat, that night, Returning home, she found her apartment door ajar, her blood iced over. She pushed inside. Nothing looked broken, but the air was wrong, too still. On the table lay a single envelope. Inside, a photo of Matteo walking home from school. Red ink scrawled across the bottom, "Stay quiet, or next time we won't just watch." Maria's knees nearly gave out. She clutched the photo, rage and terror colliding inside her. For Matteo. For every child. For herself, the war had officially begun. The storm that had been gathering in shadows was about to break. Aftermath of the leak by dawn, Stellar Biotech's headquarters pulsed with chaos. News vans circled the building like vultures. Employees huddled in tight clusters, whispering nervously, their eyes darting toward every approaching figure. Whitfield stormed through the lobby, barking into his phone. "Damage control. I want a statement drafted in an hour. Deny everything, blame rogue actors. Say our data was misinterpreted." His face glistened with sweat. The mask of corporate control cracking. Maria wheeled her cart past the marble pillars, head bowed, heart pounding. She was both terrified and exhilarated. She had thrown the first stone, and now the ripples reached places she could not see. Denton's snare in the basement. Denton waited. His sharp suit gleamed, his jaw clenched tight. "Alvarez," he called, voice cutting like a blade. A word. Maria froze. Her cart rattled as her hands shook. Denton motioned her into a storage room. The moment the door shut, his smile sharpened into a predator's grin. "You think I don't know?" he whispered. "You've been snooping. Files don't just vanish, Alvarez." "You touched something." Maria forced a laugh. "I don't even know how to log into a computer, sir." "I clean floors." Denton leaned in close, his breath hot. "Then explain why security flagged your badge near restricted servers." "Explain why Whitfield's asking me if we have a mole." Her chest tightened. Maybe it was a glitch, his eyes narrowed. "Glitches don't leave trails. Listen carefully, one wrong move and your little boy becomes an orphan. Do you understand?" Maria's blood turned to ice. She clenched her fists to stop them from trembling. "Yes, sir," Denton straightened, smug. "Good. Now get back to scrubbing. And remember, you're being watched." Elijah's warning that evening, Maria rushed to the diner, panic in every step. Elijah sat waiting, eyes tired, a cigarette smoldering between his fingers. She told him everything. Denton's threat, the badge records, the photo of Matteo. Elijah cursed under his breath. "I warned you they'd come hard. Denton's not bluffing. He's ex-military, runs his own private security gigs on the side. If he says you're being watched, believe it." Maria's voice cracked. "Then what do I do? If I stop, they win. If I push forward, Matteo's in danger." Elijah's eyes softened. "Sometimes survival means knowing when to go quiet. But sometimes," he exhaled smoke, "sometimes it means hitting harder before they hit you." Maria leaned forward, fire in her eyes. "Then help me hit harder." A flicker of hope the next morning, whispers swept through the janitorial staff. Someone had seen reporters outside asking about internal sources. Another claimed an FBI car had been spotted near the loading dock. Maria felt a strange mixture of fear and pride. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't fighting alone anymore. But as she pushed her cart through the 12th floor hallway, she spotted Whitfield, Denton, and a cluster of lawyers stepping into a conference room marked Security Review. Closed session. Her gut twisted. Whatever storm she had unleashed, Stellar was preparing its counterstrike. Matteo's question. That night, as Maria tucked Matteo into bed, he looked at her with wide, serious eyes. "Mama, are you fighting bad guys?" he asked softly. Her throat tightened. "Why do you ask?" "Because you look like Abuelita's stories." "Like a warrior. But warriors get hurt." Tears welled in Maria's eyes. She kissed his forehead. "Sometimes warriors get hurt, mi cielo. But they fight so their children don't have to." Matteo nodded solemnly, clutching her hand until he drifted into sleep. Maria sat by his side, staring at the ceiling. She was no trained soldier, no CEO, no journalist. Just a mother with a mop, a USB drive, and a will that refused to break. And yet she knew. Stellar Biotech had underestimated her. The real war was only beginning. Maria froze in the hallway, pretending to polish the doorknob as Whitfield and Denton disappeared into the conference room. She caught the last flicker of the sign. Security review. Closed session. Through the thin walls, muffled voices leaked out. Lawyers spoke in clipped tones. Denton's growl cut through. Find the leak. Contain it. If the feds are circling, we need a scapegoat before sunrise. Whitfield's voice followed, sharp and strained. Then make one. But it won't be me, Maria's stomach churned. They were hunting someone to sacrifice, and she was at the top of the list. The shadow on the street. That night, the streets around her apartment felt wrong. Maria tugged Mateo close as they walked home from the corner store. Across the street, a black SUV idled with its lights off. No license plate visible. Her grip on Mateo's hand tightened. Quickly, mi cielo, she whispered, ushering him up the stairs. From the landing window, she peered down. The SUV was gone. Just like before, her phone buzzed. A blocked number. One message. We see you. Fire in the press. The journalist Jordan wasn't quiet. Within days, national outlets picked up her story. Congressional hearings loomed. Late-night shows cracked jokes about stellar lies. And then came the broadcast that rattled every corner of the company. A whistleblower's distorted voice, confessing on live radio that Stellar had knowingly pushed untested treatments into hospitals, leaving patients at risk. Maria listened in her kitchen, hands trembling. It wasn't her voice, but she knew someone else had joined the fight. For the first time, she felt a spark of solidarity. Mateo noticed her smile. Mama, did we win? Maria hugged him tightly. Not yet, mi amor. But they're scared now. Elijah's passed back at the diner. Elijah leaned across the booth, his eyes shadowed. I wasn't just an IT guy, he admitted, voice low. Before Stellar, I worked defense contracts. Cybersecurity, surveillance. I know the tricks Denton's using. I know how they erase people, Maria stared. Erase? Elijah nodded grimly. Fake charges, accidents, missing persons reports that go nowhere. They've done it before. That's why I walked. That's why I drink too much now. Maria's chest tightened. And you stayed quiet? His eyes brimmed with guilt. Until you showed me courage I didn't have. For the first time, Maria saw the broken soldier beneath his worn exterior, and the ally she desperately needed. The visitor at dawn. Maria found a folded note wedged in her apartment doorframe. No name, just 4 words scrawled in red ink, you're next. Run now, her blood ran cold. She scanned the hallway, empty. But as she shut the door, a noise drifted from Mateo's room. She rushed in. On his nightstand sat a toy soldier. Not his, a calling card. Maria's knees buckled. Her enemies had crossed into her home. The war had breached her last safe place. Maria arrived at the diner early, but Elijah wasn't there. She ordered coffee, her hands trembling against the cup. Minutes dragged by. He never missed a meeting. Finally, a waitress approached. You looking for your friend? Tall, worn-out guy, smokes too much. Maria's heart leapt. Yes, where is he? The waitress frowned. He came in last night. Left in a rush. Dropped this. She handed Maria a folded napkin smudged with grease, scrawled in Elijah's hurried hand. They're watching me. Don't come to my place. If I don't show, trust no one. Maria's chest tightened. Elijah was gone. Corporate counterstrike. The next morning, Whitfield held a press conference. Cameras flashed as he delivered his statement, voice polished but eyes betraying strain. These allegations are false. Stellar Biotech has always prioritized safety and innovation. We are cooperating fully with federal authorities to find the individual spreading malicious lies. Behind him, Denton stood like a sentinel. When the broadcast cut, Denton muttered loud enough for Maria, watching from a break room TV, to lip read, We'll find them. We'll bury them. Maria gripped the mop handle so tight her knuckles whitened. They were painting a target, and she was standing squarely in the crosshairs. The stranger in the subway later that week. Maria rode the subway home, exhaustion dragging at her limbs. At the far end of the car, a man in a gray hoodie stared at her. He didn't blink, didn't look away when she met his gaze. Her pulse raced. She shifted closer to the door. When the train screeched into her stop, she hurried out, dragging Mateo by the hand. But the man followed. Run, she whispered to her son, pushing him up the stairs. She spun, ready to confront the stranger, but he was gone, vanished into the crowd like smoke. Jordan's message that night, Maria received an encrypted email. It was Jordan. Sources disappearing. One already silenced. Need face-to-face, high security? If you have more, bring it. Time is short. Maria hesitated. Every meeting was a risk. Every step closer to the truth brought Mateo deeper into danger. But silence was no longer an option. She wrote back, tomorrow, midnight, same station. Platform 6. Her hands shook as she hit send. Mateo's fear at bedtime. Mateo clutched her tighter than usual. Mama, he whispered. Someone was outside my school today, watching. Maria's stomach twisted. What did they look like? A man in a black car. He didn't smile. He just stared. She forced a smile, though her inside screamed. Don't worry, mi cielo. Warriors protect their children, always. But when he drifted into sleep, Maria sat in the dark, tears burning her eyes. Warriors bleed too, she thought, closing in as the city hummed outside. Maria sat at her kitchen table. The napkin from Elijah spread before her. Jordan's email glowing on her phone, and the photo of Mateo under red ink still etched in her mind. The walls were closing in, friends vanishing, enemies circling. But beneath the terror, something harder began to take shape inside her. Resolve. If Stellar wanted to bury her, they would have to dig deeper than they ever imagined. Maria arrived 10 minutes early. The subway station smelled of rust and oil, its fluorescent lights flickering. She sat on the cold bench, clutching her worn purse where the flash drive hid. Footsteps echoed. A woman approached, short hair, leather jacket, eyes sharp as knives. Jordan. You came, Jordan said quietly. Maria's voice trembled. They know about me. They're watching my son. Jordan's gaze softened just for a moment. That's how they break people. Fear. But you've already gone farther than most. She tapped the purse. Do you have it? Maria nodded and passed the drive. Jordan pocketed it in one fluid motion. Stay alert, Jordan whispered. After tonight, things will escalate. They won't just threaten you. They'll try to erase you. The trap on her way home, Maria sensed it. Footsteps behind her, too steady to be random. She quickened her pace, heart hammering. She turned a corner only to find 2 men in dark coats blocking the alley. One smirked. Evening, senora. Mr. Denton would like a word. Maria's breath caught. She spun, ready to flee, but another figure stepped from the shadows. The man from the subway, the gray hoodie. Panic surged. They had her surrounded, then tires screeched. A beat-up sedan barreled into the alley. The door flew open. Get in. A familiar voice shouted, Elijah. Maria didn't hesitate. She grabbed Mateo's hand, sprinted, and dove into the car. Bullets ricocheted off brick as Elijah floored the gas. Elijah returns. Thought you were gone, Maria gasped, clutching Mateo tight. Elijah's jaw was tight, his eyes bloodshot. They tried to take me. I slipped out. Been running ever since, and he slammed the wheel, anger crackling in his voice. Denton's tightening his net. They don't just want to scare us anymore. They want us gone. Maria's chest tightened. Jordan has the files. It's out of our hands now. Elijah shook his head. Not enough. Stellar's already spinning it. We need proof they can't bury. Something explosive, Maria whispered. What if I can get it? Fractures inside Stellar. The next day at work, Maria noticed something unusual. Not fear, rebellion. Employees whispered in corners, passing folded papers. A young intern slipped a note into Maria's cart as she passed. Not everyone is loyal to them. Meet us tonight. Parking garage. Level 3. Maria's pulse raced. Allies inside or a trap? Still, she tucked the note away. If there were others willing to fight, she couldn't ignore it. Mateo's nightmare that night. Mateo woke screaming. They're here. The black car. They're coming. Maria held him, rocking back and forth, whispering lullabies until his sobs softened. But her own heart refused to calm. Every shadow outside their window felt alive. Every creak in the hallway felt like a warning. She kissed Mateo's hair, whispering a vow to the dark. They will not take you. Not while I breathe. The meeting midnight. Parking garage. Level 3, Maria descended the echoing concrete stairs, her footsteps heavy. At the far corner, 3 figures waited. One woman in a lab coat, 2 men in security uniforms. Their faces pale, eyes darting nervously. You're the janitor, the woman whispered. Maria nodded. The woman's voice shook. "We know what they're doing. We can't stay silent anymore. But if we move alone, we die. Together. Maybe we have a chance." Maria's heart pounded. For the first time, she wasn't alone in the fight. The rebellion inside Stellar had begun. The garage air was damp, reeking of oil. Maria stood across from the small group. 2 guards, a scientist, and a receptionist she vaguely recognized. "We're all on borrowed time," the scientist whispered. Her badge read Dr. Patel. "Stellar buried test subjects. 23, maybe more. We've seen the files." Maria's stomach turned. She wasn't alone. Others had seen the rot too. Patel slid a folder toward her. Inside were photocopies, lab reports, signatures, authorization codes. Proof that Stellar had hidden failed trials. "Why me?" Maria asked, voice trembling. "Because you're invisible to them," the receptionist murmured. "You walk the halls and they don't notice. That's power." The internal rift. The following day, rumors spread through Stellar's corridors like wildfire. Someone had leaked internal emails to a journalist. Whitfield stormed through the executive floor, barking orders. "Find the mole. Double security." Every message scanned. Maria passed by with her cart, head bowed. But she caught fragments. "If this gets out, board intervention, Denton's project compromised." Her chest tightened. The walls were cracking, but cracks also meant collapse, and danger for anyone caught inside. Mateo's warning that evening. Maria picked Mateo up from school. He looked pale, uneasy. "Mama," he whispered. The black car was there again. But this time the man waved at me. Her blood froze. They weren't just watching. They were letting her know they could touch him any time. Maria forced her face into calm. "Stay close to me, mi cielo. We'll outsmart them." But inside, dread gnawed at her. If Stellar wanted to silence her, Mateo was their leverage. The intercepted signal Jordan reached out again, this time with urgency. We cracked part of Stellar's code. Coordinates embedded in their reports. Hidden transport routes. They're moving something or someone. Midnight drop. Docks, Pier 47. If you're in, meet me. Maria's hands shook. A choice stood before her. Stay hidden, protect Mateo, and pray someone else carried the torch, or step into the line of fire. She looked at her son, asleep with his toy dinosaur clutched tight. Unaware of the storm, Maria whispered into the night, "I can't let them build their empire on our silence." Pier 47 fog rolled heavy over the docks. Maria crept behind rusting containers, every sound magnified in the silence. Jordan was already there, crouched in shadow. They watched as a black Stellar van pulled up. Men in suits unloaded sealed crates marked only with a red symbol. Jordan's camera clicked softly. "Evidence," she breathed, but one crate shifted. From inside came a muffled bang. Then another. Maria's breath caught. That wasn't cargo. It was someone alive. The men froze, then hurried the crate onto a waiting boat. Maria's nails dug into the wood of the crate she hid behind. Stellar wasn't just covering up failed trials. They were moving human subjects, disappearing them. The turning point as the boat pulled away. Jordan's hand gripped Maria's shoulder. "This is bigger than we imagined. But with this, we can burn them." Maria stared at the vanishing vessel, her heart breaking. Somewhere inside, someone pounded for freedom, swallowed by the night. "This isn't just about evidence," Maria whispered. "It's about saving them." Jordan met her eyes. For the first time, no cynicism, no hard mask, just grim agreement. "Then we go to war." The night after the pier, Maria couldn't sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the pounding from inside the crate. Whoever they were, Stellar had stolen their voice. Elijah arrived at dawn, unshaven, exhaustion carved into his face. Jordan says the footage is enough to spark an investigation. But we need someone inside to confirm the human trials. Maria's jaw tightened. "I can get in. They still think I'm invisible." That evening, she returned to Stellar like any other shift. She moved her cart down the sterile corridors, her mop squeaking faintly on polished floors. But instead of scrubbing, she counted security cameras, memorized door codes, and noted guard rotations. At midnight, Maria slipped into Lab 6. The air smelled of bleach and metal. In the back, a locked freezer hummed. She entered the code Patel had given her. Inside were vials, labeled with numbers, not names. Next to them, thin files, Subject 19, neurological damage. Subject 23, cardiac arrest. And at the bottom, photos of test subjects restrained in hospital beds. Maria's hands trembled. Proof. More than enough. But before she could hide the file, a voice cut through the silence. Well, Denton said smoothly, stepping from the shadows. The janitor who thinks she's a whistleblower. 2 guards flanked him. Maria's breath caught. She was trapped. Denton smiled, cold and calm. Did you really believe you could bring down Stellar with a mop and a flash drive? You're an insect, Maria, and insects get crushed. Just then, alarms blared. The emergency lights bathed the lab in red. Jordan's voice crackled through a stolen intercom. Run! Chaos erupted. Maria hurled the vials across the floor, shattering glass, releasing chemical fumes. Guards coughed, choking. She sprinted through the haze, clutching the files to her chest. Outside, Elijah waited with the car running. They tore into the night, Stellar's building shrinking behind them. Maria looked at the files, then at her son's photo tucked in her wallet. For the first time, fear gave way to fire. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was fighting back. The files spread faster than Maria imagined. Jordan's network leaked them to independent journalists, who published the images of restrained subjects. Social media exploded. Stellar trials trended within hours, but Stellar struck back just as hard. Paid spokespeople flooded the news, fabricated, taken out of context. Denton himself appeared on television, calm and smiling. Stellar has always operated ethically, he said. This is a smear campaign by disgruntled ex-employees. Maria watched the broadcast in a dingy safe house with Elijah and Jordan. Her stomach churned. They'll bury the truth. They always do. Not if you speak, Jordan replied. Not as Maria the janitor, but as Maria Alvarez, the woman who risked everything to save lives. Fear clawed at her throat. If she went public, they'd come for Mateo. But silence was no longer an option. 2 nights later, Maria sat under the hot studio lights of an independent news program. Her palms sweated, her voice trembled, but she told her story. The crates, the files, the discrimination that kept her hidden. I cleaned their floors for 6 years, she said, and I saw what they tried to hide under those floors. People deserve to know the truth. The broadcast went viral. For every lie Stellar spread, thousands of voices rose to defend her. Employees from other facilities stepped forward, confirming her claims. Patel released her own testimony, and soon others followed. Stellar's fortress of silence began to crumble. But Denton wasn't finished. One night, Mateo vanished on his way home from school. Maria's world collapsed. She screamed, tore through streets, begged strangers for help. Hours later, a message arrived on her phone. Come alone. Lab 6 tonight, or you'll never see him again. Maria entered Lab 6 with her hands raised. The room was dim, the smell of chemicals thick in the air. Mateo sat tied to a chair, fear wide in his eyes. Denton stood behind him, calm as ever. You should have stayed invisible, he said. Now your son pays the price. Maria's chest heaved. Let him go. You want me, Denton sneered. You're nothing. But as an example of what happens to traitors, you're perfect. Before he could signal his guards, the walls shook. Smoke bombs crashed through the vents. Jordan and Elijah stormed in with Patel and 2 of the security defectors. Step away from the boy. Jordan shouted. Chaos exploded. Maria lunged for Mateo, cutting his bonds with trembling hands. Denton grabbed a syringe from the counter, aiming for her, but Elijah tackled him. The syringe skittered across the floor. Denton roared, swinging wildly, but Elijah held firm. Maria clutched Mateo, shielding him. For the first time, her fear turned into rage. You built an empire on broken bodies, she said, and you thought no one would see. But I was always watching. Police sirens wailed outside. The rebels had triggered the alarm system, sending evidence directly to federal investigators. Denton's smirk faltered as armed officers stormed in. He tried to protest. I'm the victim here. But Patel threw the lab files at their feet. The officers read quickly, their faces hardening. Mr. Denton, one said, you're under arrest for human experimentation, fraud and conspiracy. As they dragged him away, Denton hissed at Maria. You can't kill the machine. Another will rise. Maria met his gaze. Then we'll keep rising too. Epilogue months later, Stellar Corporation collapsed under lawsuits and federal probes. Survivors of the trials were freed and placed under medical care. Maria stood at a podium in Washington, Mateo in the front row, Jordan and Elijah by her side. She had been asked to lead a new initiative, the Invisible Voices Project, dedicated to protecting whistleblowers and uncovering corporate abuse. She spoke softly, but her words carried weight. They called me invisible. But invisibility is a weapon. It let me see what they didn't want seen. And now I'm not invisible anymore. The audience rose in thunderous applause. Mateo beamed with pride. The janitor who once mopped floors in silence had become the voice that toppled giants. And though the war against corruption would never truly end, Maria had proven one truth no machine could erase. Even the smallest voice, when spoken with courage, could shake the world.